But if there's anything from there that you remember that was like, I really want to know, I really want to say, now might be a good time. I got myself, this was for a big, like a singing bowl, supposedly, but we never figured out how big the bowl has to be before this works. It's something that we inherited from the previous owner of Tibetan Spirit. Uh, I can only find one. I remember there were two of them, but this has now become very useful.
Oh.
Oh,
Nice.
been really good. So anyway, left hand this, right hand this. Massaging the mind, massaging the body.
That's great.
Loosening up tightness, outer and inner.
You're making me jealous.
Yeah, so I, in case of anything from last weekend,
I took a lot of notes,
mhm.
and I been meaning to go back over and read that and look at it through the way you presented it, because I've never heard it presented that way before.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I didn't realize all the references, the
Oh yeah.
looking
Uh-huh.
now,
Right.
12 links of interdependent arising.
Mm-hmm.
And but I just really, I thought it was so wonderful. And so, I mean, just like always, like all of your teachings,
Mm-hmm.
so so thorough and in depth.
Each time I teach the Heart Sutra, at the end of it, I threaten to write a book about it. Luckily, it only lasts about 2 weeks, and so nobody has to read that book. But I like the Heart Sutra a lot, and then I also, yeah, as I say, each time I teach it, I feel like, I really, have something to say. That is not, me making it up, but all the stuff is all out there, but never, kind of brought together in this particular way. So I'm still, under that fantasy of I'm going to write a book about it. So give me 2 more weeks, it will go away. Don't worry.
Well, I would read that book.
Write the book. Go ahead.
Each time I think of writing a book, I was like, no, that doesn't justify killing more trees. So
I really appreciated your, focusing on the different slants of reading this through the different yanas. In a yana.
Right.
And also how, one isn't better than the other. It's just different.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of slanted toward a different, maybe stage of development or understanding.
Right. Often you see subtle kind of polemical stuff going on that is then, with most commentators or people who teach on it, will try to smooth over. And I think that's different from recognizing that, no, these are just layers that the Buddha taught so that you give a coherence, I think, to the Buddha. Rather than, to me, I think many, especially modern commentators, modern teachers who teach it, they have been colored by Western scholarship, which, rightfully, I think, point out to the historicity of the text, that it arose at a time to discredit the Abhidharma focus/obsession on categories.
Mhm.
So modern teachers know about that, but then they cannot ignore that, and so they kind of layer over it, in ways that leaves me feeling still like, so you're kind of seeing the elephant in the room, but you're ignoring the elephant,
Mhm.
by privileging, another elephant, and say, as for that elephant, just don't even notice that it's, it's there. But I think that in the ancient commentaries, a number of them recognize a different way of reading it, so that you don't have to, on the one hand, dismiss, the fact that there's something like that going on, and also don't need to like kind of like champion one over the other, and miss, the richness of that text. The text is really rich. There's a whole aspect of like interdependence that is also very rich, that is not explored more. On the surface, the text is about emptiness, but as much as it's about emptiness, it's also about interdependence. And then interdependence has only received, I think, a very well, in my estimation, in again things that have been published in English, the notion of interdependence have received two important focus thus far. One is more along the lines of represented by writings of Thich Nhat Hanh and the East Asian, which goes in the direction of, therefore, in conclusion, we're all one. And also like, like the example of like drinking tea, like, when you drink tea, and then if you are able to remember interdependence, then you call into mind the person who made this and all the peoples, directly and indirectly involved in that person's life, and then the water, the tea leaves, and suddenly, right, the whole universe is in this cup of tea, which is one aspect of that. Then the more philosophical aspect, would go into the 12 links of dependent origination in examining how suffering arises and suffering ceases by 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 a more specific reference to interdependence, rather than just things that are interdependent, but that list of 12 links that the Buddha taught, and then going forward, going backwards. There's another aspect of interdependence that is often unknown or not even focused, which is interdependence in the context of how things that we perceive, our ability to perceive interdependence is limited. Whereas the Buddhists have seen clearly the interdependences that arises in all situations. And therefore, when the Buddha taught and prescribed and said, you should do this, and this, and you should not do this, and this, some of it are quite obvious to us why, do this, and this, and don't do this, and this. But other areas are a little bit hidden from our ability to see. So that particular area of interdependence is also related to our sense of magic, actually. What we lacking in ability to see would call it magic. But where it's not, it's based on seeing the more subtle connections and causes and conditions of things, and then how that pertains to our practice, our path, and how all the different elements of the path, comes together. That aspect is more in the Tibetan expression of Tendra. So Tendra, the philosophical meaning of Tendra is as popularly known already. The 12 links of interdependent origination among those who emphasize that side, and then the more broader notion of we're all one, or some version of that. But when Tibetans, colloquially sometimes use Tendra, that is something that is related to those two, but a significant aspect that we have yet to really understand and appreciate.
So I take it that in more reading this and studying it and practicing from a Hinayana point of view, and would involve practically and at times, really breaking down and trying to understand and see internally how we go through the 12 steps. Is that, whereas in Tibetan Hinayana forms, it's more of kind of like just do it. You don't break it down.
Right. They just, because in the Tibetan circles, these are studied as, well, I just said that. These are studied as topics to memorize,
but not as states to kind of understand. I go from here, and then grasping arises, and then
right. Because in Tibetan, so much of the practice is something else, like deity practice or Mahamudra practice, or so all these other things, like even the 4 foundations of mindfulness, for Tibetan system, it has become, I'm not saying that it's meant to be, but it has become lists to memorize. So much so, like, you have like the 9 stages of shamatha. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, like the different yanas?
No, just like the presentation of the 9 stages of shamatha, represented with like the elephant and the guy leading the elephant, and that painting, 9 stages of shamatha. It's like, I remember when I was in graduate school, Jeffrey Hopkins, will say that, there are extensive discussions of like all those subtleties of the 9 stages of shamatha, but you'll be hard pressed to find any, Gelugpa practicing the 9 stages of shamatha. But there are lots of, he says, even finer details of the 9 stages, and finer details, sub-commentaries of sub-commentaries of sub-sub-commentaries on the 9 stages of calm abiding,
Right.
But nobody is actually practicing the calm abiding according to that. Not that nobody is practicing calm abiding. They are, but they're practicing it a whole other approach, like meditating on Tara, as part of generation stage. They get their calm abiding over there, but they have extensive discussions on all the minutiae of the system of the 9 stages of calm abiding.
And do you think there's something lost in this?
Recently, yeah. So out of that Heart Sutra retreat and some other retreats, like yesterday, if you listen to my program yesterday, it's on Facebook on the smoke offering. It's really not, smoke offering is just an excuse to talk about more basic things, more important things.
Hmm.
There I talked about how, many of us are attracted. I was, because I came from different Buddhist background. And so I didn't come from, like a Judeo-Christian background. I came from a Buddhist background. But why I was so attracted to the Tibetan material, a big piece of it is because of the precision that you find in the text. How seemingly exacting, every point is. Yeah. And so that was attractive. And that, I suspect, is also attractive to a lot of. So practically, I grew up in Malaysia, but I was practically, you could say, Western educated. The modes of thinking, is pretty much Western, I would say. Yeah, modern Western. And so it resonated with me when I saw, like, in the Tibetan system, there's such precision, right? So then spend many years getting, downloading that precision. But it took me a while to realize that that's just adopting a framework and replacing another framework. Now, while it might be necessary, to download this new framework, it's dangerous to think that successful downloading of the framework is mission accomplished. That's where I think it's lost. A lot of us are spending time downloading and constructing that new framework. But to the degree that that framework is to be internalized, it is only so that the real work can start. So now I have thoughts about, qualms, queries about how much of that framework needs to be downloaded. Sometimes even feeling like you are replacing one set of propaganda with another set of propaganda that doesn't exactly match. I see more and more how, the irony of people completely ready to kind of take, like these really weird esoteric things, but because it's called Buddhist, that if you were back in the Christian context, you're like, that's really insane. So ironic, for me, because I don't have that background, so I can kind of watch and go, what, you believe this? Where you don't believe the apple tree and the, the snake and the Now, to me, believing in the apple tree, the snake, and all of that, for me at least, that's a framework. Something else is supposed to happen. So I don't have problem, like for people believing the equivalent of the Buddhist, apple tree and snake and, all of that. It's only a problem where that has been downloaded to some degree, and then the work has not started.
Kind of brings up Milarepa, then, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of brings up Milarepa.
Yes.
And that he wasn't so much about all the categories and stuff. It was
Totally.
like just some direct instruction, and it says, "Go do it."
Yes.
And I imagine there's some liability in that too.
Sure.
But
Mm-hmm. mainstream Tibetan Buddhism has tamed figures like Milarepa, brought them into the fold, and then yeah, and to keep mainstream going, including, I think, like and some people would blame like Gampopa, but they have no idea. I think that's unfair. They're looking at Gampopa at, again, later lens of what Gampopa was. I don't think Gampopa was the straight lace, scholar that people saying. No, Gampopa and the early Kagyu masters was still very much about like, no, don't collect information. Look at the mind. Look at the mind directly. I think that all the early Kagyu masters, meaning 12th century, 13, yeah. Then starting from beyond the 13, larger forces in Tibet, the scholastic model became the main model, I think. It's related to Tibetans building an identity, a national identity. So you cannot afford to have a whole bunch of, meditators in caves. Where the national project is to, right? Then a bunch of meditators in caves is just economically unsound. Without, I don't mean it, in terms that is a turnoff, but they have decided that they're going to kind of have Buddhism at the heart of their culture, right? But what that really means is, well, of course we need golden thrones. Of course we need carved thrones, right? Because you cannot have, right, a national culture based on caves. That's just primitive, right? So you want to support artisans, you want to support culture. Culture comes at a price. Yeah.
So I gotta just offer another perspective.
Yeah.
The first Buddhists I ever saw were Tibetans, and I didn't have any idea what they were offering in terms of their doctrine. I just knew I wanted to be like them.
Right.
And so everything I've done since then has been, so for me, it's the opposite. It's like the framework that they offer is a way to describe experiences I'm already having. And I didn't know how to name or describe or understand. And every time they give us more doctrine, like
Right.
in Chucky Nima says something, he always says, don't trust me, go figure it out, And he constantly warns us against the error of being a scholastic and not a practitioner.
Right.
It's not changing you, it's not doing you any good, so give it up.
Right.
So I guess I haven't run into the institutional Tibetan Buddhism that you are closer to or something. It's just kind of been, maybe I haven't stumbled into it. I've certainly met people 40 years studying Tibetan Buddhism who are still jerks, still arrogant,
Right.
still like think they know everything. They haven't, nothing about them has grown or changed all those years. But most people know.
Partly, so I think, no, you're right. I think a lot of people first met like individuals and then saying, I want to be like that guy. Right? I want to be like that guy. And then doing the practice, right? And then the categories come later. But some of them, these categories start to take over. Yeah. For some, right? That start to take over.
Mhm.
Now, the other piece of your experience is, it's like one of my friends who's a Gelugpa monk, and he said, yeah, he said, and their experience is very different.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But actually, even the most successful Gelugpa group, right, is FPMT.
Mhm.
It's Lama Yeshe and Lama Zupa. Mostly Lama Yeshe passed away very early. Mostly Lama Zupa.
Mhm.
Lama Zupa is very unusual in the realm of Gelugpas. He's not very scholastic at all.
Mhm.
He's like the opposite. Like if you go like over the board, like I was listening to a podcast like by Wisdom Publication, the Wisdom Podcast, and one of his like editors closest student, and she kind of laugh about it. She's like, yeah, in a typical Lama Zopa style, he compiles a book about death and dying, and there's like 75 different mantras, prayers, and offerings to do.
Yeah.
And that's his style. Like for every problem, it's solved by 100,000 water offerings.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah? And then chant this other obscure mantra that he found, and do that. Oh, we need to build 7 more stupas, otherwise the earthquake is going to come. In the internal memos from FEMT, I mean, they don't put it out there. Sometimes they do put it out there, but there are a lot of internal memos of like, oh, we need to build another 7 stupas. We need to build another 30 prayer wheels, because otherwise the fires are going to come and take swallow up everything. So he's unusual that way.
Mhm.
But anyway, this is someone from within his organization saying he understood like Trungpa Rinpoche's kind of what he was doing was, he said, he would teach basically people to look into their minds, to understand their minds. Then later, when he starts offering the advanced teachings,
Mhm.
in fact, that's all like the stages of the path.
Right.
But he does it in such a way like so in that way, it's like Milarepa,
Yeah.
right? Milarepa would first give these mind teachings, like to the shepherd. And
Mhm.
then when they're hooked, he said, okay, now let me tell you about refuge.
Mhm.
And
Right.
refuge entails the following things.
Right.
And let me tell you about da da da. And that entails da da da. So
Yeah.
that part, now of course, I think Trungpa Rinpoche came over and he was highly critical of the history of his own tradition.
Mhm.
So he in fact saw many things that he didn't like, about how the history of Buddhism unfolded in Tibet. And he just said, no, don't go focus on those things. But not, again, like if you look at Tibet, as they develop, necessarily they have to do those things. Because the national project is Buddhism, then Buddhism need thrones,
Yeah.
Then when I look at like Drupchen, pictures of Drupchen and all that, I mean, there's a part of me that's attracted to all the colors and the ritual details and all of that. Then I also like, like that's a lot of, staging there,
So I really like hearing this from you, because we're here, the bunch of us right now are here with you because of, we like how you do it.
Uh-huh.
So you never come here and make us put you up on a throne.
Uh-huh.
And you know, there's this edge of critical thinking that's very appealing, you know, so you don't want us to idolize you or, right?
Yeah, yesterday, like in the teaching, got to the topic of guru again, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, if you ask me, the best thing you can do is you work on finding a guru, but do yourself and others a favor. Don't tell that person. You know, don't tell that person.
Yeah.
Then someone whom
Person
I
when you,
thought,
I'm sorry, don't tell the person when you found a guru.
Don't tell
yeah,
the-
don't tell your guru that he or she is your guru.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, don't. Then someone that I thought, you know, already knew this was like, what? You know, then I got to see, you know, how much the party line. It's like, oh, you need a guru, you need a guru. I said, yeah, I'm not contradicting that at all. No doubt, you know, especially if you're talking about Mahamudra, the way the Kagyupas talk about the Mahasiddhas, you know, the Mahasiddhas would even, you know, undercut everything. I mean, that's a position that they are standing, right? Buddhism overall has a long-standing tradition of like pulling the rug from under, right? So you can say the Heart Sutra is all about pulling the rug out, right? So first you have, you know, this kind of very imprecise sense of self, right? Then the Buddha, you know, help us sort it out into the skandhas, right? Then you get, you know, kind of obsessed with that, you know, Buddha pulls that out, right? So there's a history of that, right? And then specifically when you look at the Mahasiddhas, the originators, you could say at least historical originators of Mahamudra, they are, you know, and by extension Dzogchen, you know, they were these Mahasiddhas who basically said no, 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 right? They even like eschew like labels of like Buddhist to that degree. They're like, you know, mantras, you know, they're like, you know, why are you wasting your breath, you know? Fire offering, you know, why are you wasting resources? You know, everything. They just like, no, no, no. But they never, ever, not one of them will say, and get rid of your guru. Yeah. They even like, you know, like the Zen style, you know, if you see the Buddha on the road, slay him, right? They will even say that. But none of them would say, get rid of your guru. Yeah, so I said, you know, I cannot change that and I cannot try to improve that for you by saying to you, oh, actually, you don't need that, right? So I'm not saying that, but I am saying, you know, don't tell that person.
Don't tell the guru.
Don't tell the guru that,
There's
oh,
all these people in this book who are you know, just begging Milarepu to be their guru, and they have
different
to
circumstance.
Yeah.
Different circumstance.
go,
Yeah. Yeah. We cannot take that and say, oh, therefore I should be that like that. We're not wired that way. So then there's so many issues, you know, when you go say to someone, oh, can you be my teacher? Can you? And I said, you know, it's different. I'm not saying, you know, there are lots of kinds of teachers, you know, like you're signing up for a course, right, in college. Well, that's a teacher. I'm not saying don't do that, you know. But the Mahamudra Dzogchen of like seeing your guru as Buddha, that kind of guru, don't tell that person. For their sake, for your sake. For their sake, I said, you know, for their sake, I said, because we don't quite have, you know, Shakyamunis walking around.
Yeah.
Yes, so it's putting too much on them. Okay, so for their sake. For your sake, when you go declare to someone like that, what exactly are you trying to achieve? Sometimes it has to do with, oh, I am a student of a very well-known Lama. So there's that stuff going on, right? Then there's some other stuff related to, well, as you pointed out, Jim, look, all over this book, it says that's how we do it, and therefore I'm going to do it this way too. But the thing is, our circumstances are different. What happens with us is, I think, we learn to be the obedient and the devoted student that we see here, when in fact what might be going on is we are pushing our doubts and our resentments aside. Then the minute this person don't match what we want them to be, all those doubts and resentments come up, and we get very angry that we have been deceived. So if you keep it a secret and you keep working on it, you can, because there are two issues, There is the problem of like our perception of that person. That's one side of that issue. The other side of the issue is the other person is or isn't Shakyamuni Buddha like. Yeah. How many Milarepas are there walking around, even in Milarepa's time? Very few. Right? For all the Milarepa books that we have, right, there are thousands of non-Milarepa books that were never written about other gurus. So hardly this can be normalized and universalized.
I kind of get it. It's kind of like, all the teachers I see now wear a lot of clothes.
Yes. Right, and these are exceptions, right? So if we just work on the level of our perception, then we don't need the other person to know, if you ask me, because it's, after all, I'm working on my perception. We don't need the other person to know. We let the other person know, and I feel often prematurely. We're not ready, they're not ready. Then only trouble can come. But if over time, like you're like, I am from my heart training my perception to see this person as Buddha. Yeah. So over time, you purify your own perception. Then it will come to a point where it doesn't matter whether that person is or is not. You cannot be harmed. You cannot be derailed, because you're beginning to understand what it means to see not just that person, but everyone as Buddha. Including, what the hell does it mean to see Trump as Buddha? Even if you, assuming you're not a Trump fan, including seeing Trump as Buddha and what that means. Yeah, so relating to a guru is about training our perception. And in my experience, it's a lot more helpful to not go say, oh, you are my blah, blah, blah. Because if it is, it is. If it is not, it just adds another layer of complication that is unnecessary. then I shared that, like, and what I'm saying, I didn't make it up, because in fact, my closest teachers, they all did that. They never accepted the label that I wanted them to accept. Oh, you're my teacher. They just laugh, kindly, not laugh like ha ha ha, but kindly just kind of brush that off and say, you just practice the Dharma.
It's kind of like a level of constructs that aren't necessary.
Yeah. For many of us, I'm not universalizing it. I'm offering this as one way of approaching this issue, whereby you understand, right? We're not saying, oh, we are different, the guru is not necessary. That, as I said, that I think is very clear, that they say it's necessary. But as to whether it's necessary to go declare this, and when is it necessary, I think that has been overplayed.
How does Samaya fit into this?
Mm-hmm.
Is that just a one-sided operation, or is that kind of depending on a mutual understanding?
Mutual.
Yeah.
And so for it to be mutual, it has to arise interdependently. You cannot have someone hoist Samaya upon you.
No, right.
Yeah. Either way, the student hoisting it on the teacher, and the teacher hoisting it on the student, it's not Samaya.
Right.
So then in Vajrayana circles, there's a lot of talk about breaking Samayas.
Right.
Yeah. I said, you can't break something that is not there. Samayas are not formed so easily. And when that samaya is formed, yeah, of course, it's hellish when it's broken. Right? So to me, all that talk about how terrible, how heinous, breaking samaya is talking about when the bond is really there, and when that's damaged, everyone suffers.
Mhm.
But instead, I have people like messaging me, people who've been practicing 20 years, 30 years, to whatever degree, right? And as far as I can tell, really, really sincere, but they like, get anguished, they say, oh, I was just talking to a Dhamma brother and saying how, I can't get, Zoom to work, something as innocent as that. I can't get Zoom to work, to participate in, Lama so-and-so's, sessions. And then, this Dharma brother said, oh, you have damaged your samaya. Like the Dharma palas are upset with you. Now you have to go do all this purification. I'm like, no, you need to find a teenager. To figure out your Zoom problem. Now, mind you, this is someone who works in the computer lab, in programming, not in getting Zoom to work, but in programming. Okay. So yes, there's some mysterious like why it's not working, but still, you don't instantly jump to samaya, which is what in some of these Vajrayana communities, at a drop of a pin, they jump to samaya damage. And then someone who innocently walk into an empowerment, because it's something is happening, at the end of it, they're given the impression like, now you have this samaya. And if you break this, bad things will happen to you. And they're terrified, And I get so many questions, people asking me, did I bring my samaya? Is that a samaya? I was like, samayas don't get formed so easily. In the same way, you might be infatuated with someone, but there is no relationship going on. Yeah. And so you can't break what you don't have, Even among Tibetans, like Samaya, there is this idea that, it's something that students have to guard. So founder of Rechungpa, Jigten Sumgön made this statement. He says, Samaya is something that has to be upheld on both ends. The fact that he had to say it, means people were going around thinking that Samaya is a burden that students have to bear on their end. But he said, no, it has to be mutual. Yeah. So then following from that, you're like, okay, so how does someone bear it if they don't know that I'm treating them as a teacher, Well, then maybe not yet, this bond. But naturally, if that has arisen, right, then yes, there is a bond now, there is Samaya now because it has become mutual. In other words, through our actions, not through words. Oh, so and so is my teacher. No, not through words, but through action, through the way we have been training ourselves. Yeah, then it will mutually arise. Another insight yesterday, not related to the matter of guru, I want to share with you is, how we talk about like actions of body, speech, and mind, right? That's repeated, very commonly, right? Actions of body, speech, and mind. It occurred to me yesterday that actually something very different and profound is said when we say actions of body, speech. So not so much the body and speech, because we think of body and speech, right? Verbal, like things we say and things we do, we think of those as actions. But very rarely do we really think of thoughts and emotions as actions. Right? I mean, intellectually, you say, oh, yeah, body, speech, and my action. But do we actually relate to our thoughts and emotions as actions? No. I think for the most part, we don't. We're just like, that's just what happens. But the Buddha is saying, no, no, no. Thoughts and emotions are actions. Can you see that they are actions? Meaning, those are choices that we make. And when we make choices, there are outcomes of choices that we have to face. But I just feel this way. That's an action. It's what the Buddha is saying. That is an act. So these actions of mental, emotional actions, feelings and thoughts, they are driven by habit. But nonetheless, they are actions. And we have to pay attention to those actions. Normally, we really don't think of, thoughts and feelings as actions. Yeah, but the full implication of calling body, speech, and mind as actions of body, speech, and mind is really like, whoa.
And I take it in this way that you're talking about, thoughts and feelings, is, really viewing them too, like, outward behaviors, as
Mhm.
phenomena in this space, this empty space. There's
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
kind of separation from them. I'm not that.
Say that again.
I'm not the phenomena. I'm not the thought. I'm not the feeling. I'm not,
Yes. Yes. Right.
just
Right. That's
exist.
the not. Back
They
to Heart
exist,
Sutra. You
they exist in the
know,
space of
sometimes.
awareness. Is that
Yeah. I said in the Heart Sutra, sometimes in terms of the translation, I'm not sure whether it should be translated as no body, no body, no feelings, no perception, no mental formations, or not body, not.
right?
Yeah. No and not are quite different.
We don't have to give them names.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't have to say, oh, this
Or
is
we
the
can
body.
give them names and just know, right? We can give them names and know just that's just by designation.
Yes.
Designation is not like there's a famous anthropologist that coined this phrase, map is not territory.
Bateson.
Yeah. Yeah. Map is not territory, Then I guess now we can also link to my point about don't go tell that person you're my guru, but understand that there's this principle that needs to, and that will grow and develop over time.
It's something that's found, not decided on.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to go look for it, right? It's not like accidentally you'll find it. So the looking, the developing is necessary, but don't declare. That's a level of contrivance that's, for the most part, not necessary. Yeah. So when the Heart Sutra says, no sight, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, right? That's the usual translation. Sometimes I wonder, it's like maybe it's not sight, not sound, not smell, not taste, not touch. Yeah. It's not that. It's not that. It's not that. It's not that. Yeah. So in the Zen tradition, the koan, the root of all koans, even though in the Rinzai Zen they have a few hundred koans and 7 stages or whatever that you have to work through if you're doing Rinzai training. But the root of all koans is really the question of what is it? Like, what is this mind? So then the Heart Sutra's answer is, it is not form, it is not feeling, it is not perception, it is not formations, it is not consciousness. And it is not sight, it is not sound, it is not smell, it is not taste, it is not touch. So it is not the 5 aggregates, it is not the 6 senses, it is not the 6 sense faculties, it is not the 18 domains where these things take place. It is not consciousness, it is not consciousness. Then what is it? Yeah, exactly. What is it? So apparently Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche, Dzogchen master, has passed away now. But he said, this thing, on the one hand, yeah, it's not. On the other hand, you can call it Bob. Buddha nature, Bob, If you know what you're talking about, doesn't matter what name you give it. If you don't know what you're talking about, all the names become traps. Yeah, and you can go debate, you know, which term is more precise, all of that, you know. But if you don't get it, you know, then all labels are going to be traps. If you get it, just call it Bob, you know. Do you know Bob? Have you seen Bob? Buddha Bob, you know, Buddha Bob. That's, by the way, Thurman's nickname, Buddha Bob.
Bob Nature just doesn't sound right, though.
If you know what it is, then
Yeah, true.
it's Bob.
Bob Nature.
In Arkansas, it's Bubba Nature.
Oh, Bubba Nature, yeah. The Bubba Nature.
Hey, there was a guy when I voted the other day, his name was Bubba's,
Mhm.
and they put on the voting thing, they put Bubba. And so they had to put all these signs up and said, oh, sorry, his name isn't Bubba, it's Bubba. Arkansas through and through. So one thing that I'm thinking about,
Uh-huh.
I have a couple of different gurus.
Uh-huh.
They're both Nyingma, but one is
Uh-huh.
Thujim and one is Katog.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, I'm just playing the advocate here,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know anybody that's going to be like perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, you know, I was born with my mother, and she was the one that was supposed to teach me everything.
Mm-hmm.
But she was not a perfect person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so, therefore, I've had to learn how to deal in this world,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that not everybody is going to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was going to pick, like, you know, who are the perfect people in the world, you know, that maybe aren't, you know, jerks or whatever, who are the perfect people I would pick? Well, I might pick, you know, the Dalai Lama.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, you remember that time he said that thing about women, about how women should, you know, be in charge of the world or whatever or something, and it got all, you know, you know, I mean, it had the Scrabble board screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then I think about my lifespan. If I had decided not to tell somebody, hey, you're gonna be my teacher, and I'm gonna tell you when I figure out that you're perfect or whatever. I mean, I don't have that long to live.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to just kind of, I would rather go ahead and say, hey, I've got the faith right up front. And when you screw up, I'm going to understand. But of course, you know, really, I really do have, you know, somebody else, because,
Mm-hmm.
well, it's just the way that it's kind of worked out in my life. But, you know, I mean, who's that
No,
person?
what I'm saying is, what I'm suggesting, nothing is lost there. What is lost?
For me?
Yeah. If someone were to follow what I suggested, what is the loss? That's the point I'm making.
Well, the
As a
thing of
general
it
advice
is,
to
what the point is, your llama can get to know you. You know,
Oh
if
yeah, so then
if you make a
you
commitment
let
to
them
that
you
person.
let them know you. You let them know you. Yeah, you let your guard down. You let them know you.
Well, but then it's, you know, it's called the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And so, you know, when you had that group, like, you know, my group in Jasper,
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Kathy Downs, Ani, she's Lama Zopa,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and there's different people for different needs of everybody.
I don't understand what you're saying now.
What I'm saying is there's different ways of training because there's different ways of,
No, of course. Of course.
you know, I mean, that's what I
Of
mean. I mean,
course.
she's Lama's, you know, Lama Zopa, and, you know, it's just, I don't know.
What do you not know?
Well, because I think it's okay to tell a
I
lie.
think you are perceiving my statement as saying you have done it wrong. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah, that's not what I'm saying.
And I also do think that, you know, that like Kentrell, that he knows me better than some other people after building a relationship and a bond, you know, for some.
Exactly. Build the relationship.
Right.
I did not say don't do that.
No, I know you didn't,
Yeah.
but it's just kind of like my, you know, my mother. I had to, you know, you start with somebody and you just build a relationship.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't freak out about somebody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what are we talking about?
Aren't you just basically saying don't put anyone on a pedestal?
No, that's not exactly what I'm saying.
Or
I'm suggesting a stance to take.
Well, that's good, but you know, I mean, you know, I'm going to be 67 soon.
I'm not talking about you.
Well, I'm talking about me.
Okay, then you do what works for you. And
Well,
there's
what
nothing to defend.
but what I'm saying
There's-
is we only have one life. And if I waited forever and ever, and then I
No,
think, well, what am I basing
Hold on.
that
Hold
on?
on. Did you hear me saying waiting?
Yeah, you said
No, I did
wait
not say that.
until, yes,
No.
wait until, and then
No,
what-
no.
how are we
No,
going to know if it's going to be?
I did not say wait. If you heard that, you heard wrong. Then I have to say you heard wrong.
I heard it.
I did not say that. So I'm saying you have to be clear. I did not say wait. Yes.
I feel like saying what I heard you say.
Uh-huh.
What
And
I-
hence we have to clarify. That's
Yeah.
the problem, you know?
Is this
Because
being taped?
if we think this person said it, right? And then we walk away and say, oh, that person said that, but no, so we need to clarify. So the clarification, I did not say wait. Mm-mm.
I think what I heard you say was
Mhm.
that the process is really internal.
Yes,
The search for a guru is an
internal.
process.
But
And
you said don't tell them.
Yes, because it's internal. You have to work on yourself.
I've worked on myself.
I'm not talking about you, Karen. It's not judging you. You are hearing as a judgment that you did something wrong. Leave that
Let's
alone.
talk about me.
Leave that alone.
I'm trying.
Yeah, leave that alone. We're
I
not
still
talking about
just-
you. We're not talking about you. What I'm talking about the process. The process is an internal process. Yeah, so Melissa, that's exactly what I'm pointing to.
Hey, everybody say what you heard that wasn't what I said and what Dr. Lai said. Everybody go ahead, go down the line.
No, don't turn it into who is right and who is wrong. I have to clarify what I said so that you all understood what I was saying. Language is imperfect, so we have to refine it here. If we turn it into who got it right and who got it wrong, who got a point, who did not get a point, then this is useless. This is not what this is for.
Here's what I heard.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Lord.
It's as if you're at a party and you see this person across the room and make eye contact.
Uh-huh.
And you each smile a little and you know there's something there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's maybe better not to talk about it
Mm-hmm.
right then.
And then you get to know each other. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no layer of awkwardness that I feel a lot of time is unnecessary. Now, if you say, well, it wasn't unnecessary for me, good. Yeah. Great, because as we know, everyone is different. But I'm offering a perspective of how, especially those of you who are new, yeah, your struggle with who is my guru, who is my guru, I think that's just unnecessary, a waste of energy. Then those of us who have our guru, one of the mistakes that we make is we give others the impression that somehow they are lost. And I have been found. And I know it's a big burden. Again and again, I can say all the text about the guru says, keep it a secret. Keep it a secret. Khenpo Kata Rinpoche, who passed away at 96, the main Kamakagyu Khenpo. So his nephew wrote his biography. Yeah, one example. And his nephew at the end, somewhere in the biography said, and we have no idea who his root guru is. So he's very old school. We have no idea who his root guru is. We have a suspicion that it was the 16th Karmapa, but he would never talk about it. He said, and his nephew's point, so there are many points you can make about that, right? But his nephew's point is, he says, because for Rinpoche, it's such a personal thing. And so he didn't need anybody to know. And he never talked about it. So when we say Vajrayana is the secret mantra path, that is sort of part of the secret, not in the sense of, I have a secret that you don't have, but it's intimate, right? So it's intimate, you don't need it. It's
But I
intimate.
don't think the secret Vajrayana has anything to do with not telling your teacher that, hey, I'd like for you to guide me.
Asking someone to guide you is not the teacher that I'm talking about here. I'm talking about you have to perceive that person as Buddha. That is the guru I'm talking about. Like I said, of course you sign up for classes and of course that's your teacher. Of course you go to a retreat, in a technical sense, of course that person is teaching you. Of course you say to someone, hey, can you help me? Yes. But that point about seeing that person as Buddha, it's not easy.
But
That is the final point of Guru Yoga. is to see that person as Buddha.
I mean, my mother, when I was 2 ounces, she was my Buddha.
We can disagree because I'm not Buddha. So luckily,
Either was my mother, but
luckily,
I thought she
I'm not
was.
Buddha as in my realization. So we can disagree. I don't have a monopoly over this. So you can keep to your own experience and work with that experience.
To me, it's important.
Joyce?
Yeah,
Oh,
I have
sorry.
something to say that just from my own experience with
Mhm.
Mama Longmo many years ago, and this, I think it's related, but it's
Mhm.
not speaking exactly to this.
Mhm.
I took refuge with her and I had some private consultations. And at one point, I asked her, so does this mean now that you are my teacher?
Mhm.
I was really meaning, are you my guru? But
Uh-huh.
I used the word teacher. And she said, yes, I'm your teacher, and you will have many teachers.
Uh-huh.
And that kind of prevented me from taking her on in that role and
Yes.
left the door open for many more teachers and teachings.
Yeah. And she skillfully, point you to not laying on this layer
Yes.
where you're not ready and she cannot live up to. And I think I feel it's because the literature out there gives everyone the impression that, you find someone, you have to go declare to them. And in the role that I am in, I see a lot of people being burnt.
I have to say, I like Karen to some extent, as you this morning, I have felt defensive,
Mm-hmm.
because I do have that relationship, and it's been life changing for me. But so as you're talking, I think I just decided you're not talking. I've avoided the traps that you're preparing people to avoid, luckily, for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so I appreciate that you're making warnings about things that can happen,
Mm-hmm.
that I take seriously. And I do really appreciate that critical side of you, that you do that all the time with this stuff. Yes, this is great, but look out, And I have had to sit here this morning myself too
Mm-hmm.
and say, he's not talking to me about this. I'm not the person he's
No, I'm not talking to you. I'm
no,
not talking to Karen.
right,
I'm
right,
not
right,
invalidating meaningful guru-student relationship that you all have.
right,
No.
right. I know, but I'm just saying that I understand it rises
Yeah,
up that like, but
right.
my guru is great.
Uh-huh.
And that's just something else. I realize you run into all kinds of people. You see everything going on, and I don't see that, in the same way. So
Yeah, I've had talked to people who are in the middle of their 3-year retreat calling and crying because, the news have come out about,
right,
the
right,
Lama who has guided 10 sets of 3-year retreats and the things that they have done.
right.
You know, uh,
Yeah,
people calling me crying and giving up on Dharma. And I said, don't give up on Dharma.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. People are going to disappoint us. There's two sides to that. One, because they have a lot of stuff that they're working on. Two, our perception of them. Yeah. Just our own perception is messy enough. Then you add the fact that they too are working with their stuff. Now you have compounded, the challenges of that, right? And so the Tibetans have a saying, I've shared this before. They said, you know, there's this phrase, oh Lama, you're a Buddha, oh Lama, you're a Buddha, and then colloquially, among Tibetans will say, then they always tag on, they say in their mind, and therefore, like the Buddha, please don't talk, don't move, just sit there, as in the statue. Because if you're like that, then it's a lot easier. Then all I have to work on is my perception, which is ultimately what we
have.
Our own perception,
That's right. That's what we have.
Yeah. Ultimately, that's what we have to work on, right?
Right.
So now, in order to work on that, you need an object, right? You need an object. So that object, can be really anyone. And in choosing which one, right? That is what I'm talking about. In that choosing, the less people know, the better. Because they say obstacles are going to arise. Yeah, obstacles are going to arise. Because why? Someone will say, oh, did you know? Did you know? Oh, I heard that you are da-da-da. Did you know? Did you know blah, blah, blah about blah, 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 But if you say, oh, my guru is the Buddha, there's nothing, nobody can bring you new information that's going to change that. Nobody is going to bring you new information to change that, Yeah, if you say, oh, my guru is Han Lai, oh, I'm sure along the way you're going to find someone to go, hey, did you know? Guarantee you. Then you're like, oh, what do I do with that information? On a good day, you're like, no, that information doesn't move me. Yeah, but on a day, where things are not aligning too well, then I don't know. So it's not easy. It's quite treacherous. Yeah.
What I had heard you say, and you corrected me, and you said, no, that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
But what I had, and I'd like to hear why that's not right, is I said, it sounds to me like you're saying, don't put them on a pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, no, that's not it.
Yeah, I mean, not put them on the pedestal is a good thing to do. When I say it's not it, I'm saying, when I said that, I don't mean that. So again, see, you need to clarify.
Yeah.
Don't put them on the pedestal. Yes, no, don't put them on the pedestal. Okay, so that's important, right? Don't put them on the pedestal. But then what do we do with the instruction? Perceive the guru as Buddha. Okay, so let's work through that one, right? How do you not put them on the pedestal, right? Pedestal, and yet be training to see them as Buddha? How do you put those two together? Let's try to walk through that one.
Well, when I listen to you, okay, like I do come from a Methodist background, and I would go to church and I would listen to the preacher talk, and I would go to my Sunday school class and we would all share our thoughts. But it's so refreshing to hear someone like you, and I'm not saying this in a complimentary way. I mean, you just bring a wealth of knowledge, and you make it seem, and you bring it in an intimate way. And I get a lot out of it.
Right.
But I really appreciate what you're saying is listen to what I'm saying, or, I don't know, I don't make me, listen to what I'm saying, but also there's going to be other people out there that's going to have a wealth of knowledge that you can take what you like and leave the rest. Is what I get out of these meetings.
Right. And that's good, but here the point about like, then there are also instructions of saying there will be a point where in your practice, and that point I don't think necessarily happens so soon. Yeah. But there will be a point in a practice where you relate to someone as that person is a Buddha. Yeah. Then of course we need to know what Buddha means, Buddha means what? All afflictive emotions have been purified and all qualities have, blossomed. I mean, that's the definition of Buddha. Yeah. I mean, we use Buddha and then we fill in the blanks with whatever we want it to be. But no, there's a very precise definition of Buddha. And then it says, now you need to view that person as Buddha. Right?
Interesting.
Yeah. And that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, and if you have decided, I'm going to take Thich Nhat Hanh to be that person, right? To be that person. I'm suggesting to you, keep training like that. Thich Nhat Hanh is that person. But I'm saying, no need to tell Thich Nhat Hanh that.
Right.
I'm not saying don't work on. You do. And so then every word he says, right? You hear it as, this is what the Buddha is telling me. And you put it into practice, you put it into practice, you put it into practice, you put it into practice. Yeah. And really, it will get to a point, right? Everything that he says or do, you can perceive as Buddha activity. And from there, you begin to see all those around him as embodying the same Buddha activity. And then from there, until the person next to you having those same quality. Yeah, so Guru Yoga is a special method used by certain, especially in Tibetan Buddhism, is a major point of training. Yeah, but the point of viewing, starting with one person as Buddha, is not to stop there. Is to refine our perception so that everyone becomes Buddha, even Donald Trump. And that's a really hard one right now. Right? So listen to Wisdom Podcast. There's an interview with Shechen Rabjam Rinpoche. Go listen to that when he talked about his grandfather, which was Dewo Khyentse Rinpoche. So his name is Shechen, Shechen, Shechen Rabjam. Go to Wisdom Podcast. There's an interview done maybe last year. And they interviewed him because his grandfather is such a giant in, modern day Tibetan Buddhism. It's like, to some people, even more impressive than the Dalai Lama. I mean, he's that kind of a towering figure among, especially Kagyu Nyingma people. Everybody looked to Dewo Khyentse Rinpoche. So his grandfather was Dewo Khyentse Rinpoche. Oh. Yeah. And at least when I listened to that interview, the way he talked about Khyentse Rinpoche, and I've heard it elsewhere from other people, the way they experience Khyentse Rinpoche, he really perceive everyone as Buddha. And it started with him perceiving his guru as Buddha. And Shechen Rabjam said, not making a point, just kind of in the course of the interview, because Shechen Rabjam is supposed to be the Tuku of Khyentse Rinpoche's teacher. Okay? So the grandson is now the reincarnation of his teacher. Yeah. So the interviewer said, "Oh, can you tell us something about your previous life?" And then, Shechen Rabjam said, he kind of chuckled. He said, "Actually, I don't know much about him." I said, "Actually, I don't know much about him." And he said, "The little that I know is from my grandfather, but my grandfather did not even use his name. Of course, the grandfather talked about him, but he said, my grandfather would call him precious. Right? Just, or the most kind and precious one. That's the word that he would use to refer to his teacher. My point is, really and he said, the only time I have ever seen my grandfather tearing up is when he talked about his teacher. The only time I see him tearing up is when he talked about his teacher. But then in the interview, you also get the sense and the reason why Khyentse Rinpoche is so amazing, and you can see it in the quality of Shechen Rabjam, the grandson, which is totally, no matter who came in the room and talked to him, the grandson said, savory characters, unsavory characters. Because we know about these people, some of them. It didn't matter to Khyentse Rinpoche. Whoever came in, that was the most important person. And he had this ability, without even trying, to also let that person know, you are the most important person. You are the most important person. And everybody would walk away from meeting him feeling, I am Khyentse Rinpoche's favorite. And he wasn't playing, the tricks that, parents play, like our parents, we manipulate them, they manipulate here. Khyentse Rinpoche was someone that, it doesn't matter. And that is the perception, refining his perception, starting with one person. So that is the one person that I'm talking about, that especially at the beginning, to save yourself from a lot of grief, keep it to yourself and work on refining your perception. Keep it to yourself and keep refining your perception of that person with the understanding that that's your reference point in order for that perception to grow bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, so that everybody is Buddha. So that everybody is Buddha.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
We have another meeting.
I've got to ask this question though. If you ran into someone,
might have to answer some other time, but go ahead and ask.
Okay, well, okay, we can. You don't even have to answer it. We can continue this next time you want to.
Yeah, ask.
Because I hear you talk about that when you have someone that just like Donald Trump, who just reviles me.
Yes.
Or even someone, or how do you stand in your own power and still see him as the Buddha, but express your truth?
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Okay, so at the next meeting, we're gonna do Tong Lin for the first 15 minutes. So if y'all want to come to Tong Lin at our 12-step meeting.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, Ashley, I know your question. And the point is, we don't start with Donald Trump.
Right. Right.
Yeah, we don't
But
start with,
what I'm struggling with now is to be able to stand in my own power and my own truth.
just to know that it's possible and then be wowed by that. Like, wow. Without giving up your own truth, your own, like Khyentse Rinpoche did not sell himself out. There's a difference between making someone feel good because you want them,
Yeah.
something out of them. He did not want anything from anyone. That was the other thing the interview said. He did not want anything from anyone.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So
He was able to express himself.
yes.
All
So
right.
know that that is possible.
Yeah.
And be
That's what I
inspired by
want
that.
so bad.
Yes. And be inspired by that. That's the whole point. Be inspired
Yeah.
by that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Lai.
Okay. Ta-ta.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye all. Gabe, I will try to leave.